Imagine being homeless. You live in the woods, and your only means of shelter are a couple meager tarps that you manage to scrounge from the trash. You survive through harsh winters in the frigid cold, and through scorching hot summers with no air conditioning or protection from the rats, raccoons, mosquitoes, and bugs. You go unnoticed while normal civilization continues onward while you are trapped in poverty. People race to work, to parties, sporting events, and live their lives without noticing the hardships that you endure. Every day is spent trying to scrounge up enough money to get a bite to eat, and once the sun goes down and the day is over, you retreat to your shelter on the outskirts of town. Homelessness is a major problem in Ohio, and the number of people without homes is on the rise. Government funds continue to feed money into food pantries, health care, jail costs, and temporary housing. However, once this money is spent on the homeless, they continue to face the problem of not having a proper house or a continual form of income. This is where the government checks and funds have a limited effect on ending the problem of homelessness. The most effective means of solving this issue is when the public becomes involved in the fight against homelessness. But how big of a problem is homelessness, and how can the public be more effective in providing for the needs of the homeless in central Ohio? Every day, millions of people are left on the streets at night, without their own bed to sleep in, or even a roof over their head. There are between 1,100 and 1,200 homeless on any given night in Columbus, Ohio. With numbers this large in Ohio alone, it is hard to ignore such a great problem. This is not only heartbreaking to see people without a place to live, but the homeless can also be a great economic burden to taxpayers. This issue needs to be addressed, and people need to realize the importance of helping our city's homeless back on their feet. When homeless people are either unable or unwilling to live in shelters, they resort to living outdoors in homeless camps. In Columbus, few people know these camps better than Bishop Jerry Pierce. Pierce has been a homeless advocate for over 18 years and works to get people into permanent housing and apartments. Pierce stresses that homelessness is on the rise, and there is now an abundance of homeless camps that lie right next to some of the more wealthy parts of our city, proving that there is a growing gap between the rich and the poor.
Between the homeless and the river is the $1 million condos in downtown, which is just 2 minutes away from here. So as the gap is widening, the poor are getting poorer, the rich are getting richer due to the social and economical climate and doing away with social programs and guys coming back from Iraq, coming back from the war, Vietnam veterans. Guys choose to isolate themselves and live off the land. And most people do pretty good as far as living in shanties. Also in Columbus, we find different spots. We call them cities where the homeless guys or women, they group together. And I believe that this is the last city in Columbus. Most of them are spread out in the suburbs, just spread it out far and apart. But here, we got about 7-8 camps, like in a half-a-mile radius. And I believe as the weather changes this summer that we're going to see more of these type of situations. People coming out of their housing, the houses being repossessed, foreclosures, people coming out living in we call them bandos, living in abandoned houses. They're going to start coming out to the land when the weather breaks, as the weather's breaking right now. So what we're seeing today is a city right in the middle of a city.
I sat down with Bishop Pierce to talk about what the public can do and what the government can do to improve the homelessness situation in Columbus, Ohio. What can the average person do to help the homeless?
Well, I believe that, as the old African proverb says, each one teach one. If somebody would go just make contact with somebody, a church would make a contact with an individual in the shelter and just kind of adopt them and walk them along the way, I believe that they can make an impact.
And what needs to be done by the government in order to help the homeless?
Well, it has to be a more economical base, affordable housing again. We have Rebuilding Lives initiative here in Columbus, Ohio. I believe we house 2,500 people. 10 years ago, they came out with a plan to end homelessness in 10 years. But since then, homelessness has increased maybe three or fourfold since then. So the government, I believe, can afford affordable housing, health care for everybody. A lot of people in the shelters are not just people dealing with alcohol and drugs. We have people here that had a catastrophic event in their lives, such as divorce, hospitalization. Parents went to a nursing home, and most people in the United States are just 1 or 2 paychecks away from being homeless themselves. If the ball bounced and hit the right family at the right time in the right place, they can be homeless. So the government needs to bring affordable housing that in this land flowing with milk and honey, where we give away, we have more access in this country than people have across the world, that nobody should be homeless. It's a reflection of not just Columbus, but of America, that we have people here in this United States living up under the bridges, living in abandoned houses, living in the shelters, being packed like sardines, trying to give them a decent way of life. I think I've been so fortunate because I got 16, 18 years of experience, that I built up relationships with other housing providers, that it's kind of easier for me to get people into housing. We have some success stories. One of my deacons was a drug addict, Vietnam vet, Marine, was homeless for maybe 12 years, serious addictions, crack, alcohol, mental health. Got him linked up, got him off drugs and alcohol. He became one of my faithful members of the church and a deacon, and he married one of the young ladies in the church. Now he's a coach of a Little League football team, graduated from theology of Ohio Dominican, doing real well. One of my elders, who's also an outreach worker, was homeless at the open shelter for about 10 years, serious addiction, been clean for 5 years, really turned his life around. So that goes to show you the impact, that if we can just take 1 or 2 people and kind of focus our energy on them and just be with them. I've worked Christmas holidays for about 8 years straight, and it kind of kept me humble and made me appreciate what I have. But watching how many families come to the shelters to visit these young men on the holidays. Now, when I first started, it was real unusual to see 2 generations in a shelter. But now it's not unusual to see a father and a son. And we don't do something in the next 10 years or the next 15 years, we're going to see grandfather, son, and grandson in the shelter. So we can make an impact. We can help to get somebody back on the right. People don't care how much you know, they want to know how much you care. People are not looking for a hand up, they're looking for a hand out. They're not looking for a hand out, they're looking for a hand up.
If everyone got involved and made small contributions in the fight against homelessness, maybe one day homelessness will be non-existent. This is Ben Cloudick from WALR reporting.